Dear students, we started our first chapter, 6th class history, inspired history CISCE curriculum, 6th class. First chapter, prehistory and history, and we read in our earlier class first three pages. First three, from page 1 to 3. And today we shall start from this point, oral resources. Okay, let's have a brief recapitulation before that from the very beginning. What did we discuss yesterday? In our earlier class. That is, what is history, what is prehistory, and what is the necessity of studying history. Then we read that history is divided into three main periods like ancient, medieval, and modern, and sources of prehistory like archaeology and oral tradition. Then in archaeology point we discussed about different excavated sites, artifacts and fossils which were dug out through excavation. And we read in detail also what are artifacts and what are fossils, and by fossils how can we know about the dates and the role of archaeologists. Now today we shall start from this point, oral sources. Oral tradition is a rich source of information. It is also one kind of sources of history, like archaeology. Oral tradition is a rich source of information for historians. In India, the Vedas, the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, and the Puranas were handed down orally for hundreds of years till they were finally written down much later. And let me clarify the meaning of the word orally. Oral means which is passed over from mouth to mouth. The informations which is passed down from mouth to mouth. Okay. Instead of writing. So oral tradition is a rich source of information for historians. In India, the Vedas, the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, and the Puranas were handed down orally for hundreds of years, till they are finally written down much later. Vedas in Hinduism, we know there are four Vedas: Rig, Sam, and Jaju, and Atharva. Ramayana and the Mahabharata, these are our two greatest epics, and the Puranas. These are handed down orally for hundreds of years till they are written finally much later. So before written down these great books, these books were passed down from generation to generation orally from mouth to mouth. These books were spread. Dance and music in India also have strong oral traditions, with the ragas and dance mudras being passed on almost unchanged from teacher to student. Oral sources tell us a lot about times to which they belong. So, like these books, dance and music also passed on from generation to generation. Music like different types of ragas, and in dance there are different types of mudras. Mudras means different type of postures of the fingers, different type of gestures and postures of body, and mudras means especially related to our fingers of the dancers. And oral sources tell us a lot about the times to which they belong. There is a picture, an ancient sage passing down wisdom to his students orally. Let's read, go further. Ask your parents or grandparents to tell you the games they played as children and the counting rhymes they used while playing. Games like hide and seek, four corners, hopscotch would have been played by your parents too. The rules of these games have come down to you orally. However, let's move to next page. That is sources of history. Till now we read sources of prehistory like archaeology and oral traditions. Now we are going to learn sources of history. History is studied mostly from written or documented accounts. Manuscripts, inscriptions, monuments, coins are some examples of written evidence. So history is studied mostly from written or documented accounts. As prehistory is mainly studied from archaeology, which includes artifacts and fossils, and some other oral sources. But history is mostly studied from written documents like manuscripts, inscriptions. Inscription means any kind of writing on stone. Then monuments, different types of buildings, great establishment, great buildings, and coins are some examples of written evidence. Written records, handwritten records are called manuscripts. Manuscripts means handwritten records or any type of writing which was originally for the first time written by the author or writer. Handwritten records are called manuscripts. Before people learned to make paper, they wrote on dried palm leaves, the bark of trees, and parchment, the dried skin of sheep and goats. What is parchment? The dried skin of sheep and goats. These manuscripts were often written in languages that are not in common use now, such as classical Greek and Latin in Europe, Pali and Sanskrit in India, etc. So earlier there were manuscripts, handwritten records. And before the invention of paper, people mainly wrote on the dry palm leaves, dry bark of tree, and on parchment. That's explained here, dry skin of sheep and goats. And when manuscripts are written in ancient period, at that time those are written in these languages like classical Greek and Latin in Europe, and in our India, Pali and Sanskrit. That means these were the classical languages of Western and Eastern country. Manuscripts, palm leaf manuscripts. Here is a picture. Manuscripts tell us about the reigns of different queens and kings, the experiences of travelers, life in the royal courts, trade and commerce, the life of common people, battles, religion, and other important events. So, from manuscripts, we can know these kinds of information. All written records of history may broadly be classified as religious writing, secular writing, and accounts of travelers. So these kinds of written records can be divided into these three uh, main categories. One is religious writing, another is secular writing. Secular means non-religious, which is not related to religion, and account of travelers. That means travelogue, travel writing, accounts, description of travels. So here is a table. Written records is divided into three: religious, secular, accounts of travelers. Religious, many of the earliest writings dealt with religion. Texts like the Puranas, the Tripitakas, and the Angas provide valuable information about the social structures, the political system, and the religious beliefs of the people of the time they were composed in. So these Puranas, Tripitakas, and Angas, these were religious writings, and from these religious writings also we could know about the then political system, the structure of the society, etc. etc. Secular writing, secular or non-religious, here it's written, non-religious literature includes stories, poems, books on law, on society. The Arthashastra of Kautilya, whose another name is Chanakya or Vishnugupta, tells us a lot about the administration and socio-economic conditions of India during the time of Mauryas. Biographical writings like the Harsha Charita, written by Banbhatta, provide us with important information regarding the administrative structure and social conditions of the people during this period. So, from Kautilya, or whose another name is Chanakya, very popularly known as Chanakya. Her real name was Vishnugupta actually. He had enough contribution behind the establishment of Mauryan Empire, and he wrote that famous book Arthashastra, uh, treatise or book on economic. So from that book, these are not related to religion, and biographical writings like Harsha Charita, written by Banbhatta, you can know different types of information. Then accounts of travelers. The books and accounts of travelers are of immense value to historians. Megasthenes, who visited India during Chandragupta's time, wrote Indica after the name of her country, India. The book gives us a valuable account of Mauryan rule. The accounts of Faxian, Fa Hien, and Zhuanzhang, we say Hiuen to Chinese travelers also throw light on the reigns of Guptas and Harshavardhana respectively. So Fa Hien or Faxian throws light on the reigns of Guptas, and Zhuanzhang or Hiuen throws light on Harshavardhana. He came during the time of Harshavardhana, and Fa Hien came during the time of Gupta dynasty. We will learn about them later in this book. So accounts of travelers. So from the descriptions or accounts of different travelers, from different types of non-religious or secular books or writings, and from religious books itself, we can know so many historical informations. And remember that most of the historical sources or resources are written records and documents, unlike the prehistory sources, which are mainly fossils, then artifacts, and oral literature. Okay. Inscriptions are writings carved on hard surfaces like metal, stone walls, rocks, and pillars. As I told you, this is also one type of writing, but not writing on paper, rather writing on stone or any type of hard surface like metal, stone walls, rocks, and which are permanent, we can say. Permanent and long lasting. Anything written on hard surface means it remains for a long period of time. Unlike the papers. The stone edicts of Ashoka, about whom we will read later, are perhaps the most famous Indian inscriptions that historians have found. They tell us a great deal about the king, the people, and the religious and social life in India during his reign. from the pillars of Ashoka. Here is a picture, inscriptions from India's ancient past and tells us about Emperor Ashoka. From the leafies of Ashoka, you can know so many informations of the time of Ashoka, the great emperor. Here is written, go further. For a long time, no one could read the ancient Egyptian inscriptions which are written in the hieroglyphic script. Then in 1799, while the forces of the French Emperor Napoleon were repairing a fort at Rosetta in Egypt, they came across a big flat stone about 70 centimeters wide and 110 centimeters long. The stone had inscriptions in three different scripts: hieroglyphic, Demotic, another ancient Egyptian script, and Greek. Since archaeologists could read the Greek inscriptions, they could translate the Egyptian script using it. The Rosetta Stone, as this inscription came to be called, was thus the key that unlocked the puzzle of Egyptian hieroglyphs. The Rosetta Stone, there is a picture, or Rosetta Stone. What's written here for our extra knowledge? That one such of inscription was prepared by the ancient Egyptian civilization, ancient Egyptian people. And there was a time when people of modern day, they could not understand and could not read the hieroglyphic or hieroglyphs. We know these are very popular to the Egyptian people script. But one stone was discovered. On that stone, the same thing is written in three languages: hieroglyphic, that means in the ancient Egyptian language, then Demotic, another Egyptian language, and Greek language. However, people were unable to read out the first two, but as they could read the Greek, so from Greek they could understand, realize they could understand, they could read the hieroglyph. In this way, hieroglyph was readable. Coins and seals. Coins also have important stories to tell us about history, like the coins that we use today. Many ancient coins also had pictures and words on both sides. They depicted battle scenes, court scenes, the figures of gods and goddesses, and the faces of kings and queens. The study of coins is known as numismatics. So from coins also we can know different type of informations. Think about present Indian coin. We find on our coins and notes also, on our notes suppose, the picture of Gandhiji, Mahatma Gandhi. Suppose imagine people in our future time, 1000 years ahead, if they discover our notes, then they'll be able to get some information about that who their Gandhiji was, etc., etc. In the similar way, we can also know from the coins different types of information, because as on the coin there were the pictures of the kings and queens, pictures of battlefield, many dates were written. So coins also provide us a lot of informations. Then seals too. See here, this gold coin from ancient times tells us that gold was used quite abundantly at that time. This gold coin itself proves us, if that this gold coin itself gives the proof that gold was abundantly available at that time, because at that time they could prepare gold coins, that means gold was available. This coin gives us an idea of the kind of ships that were used during ancient times. On the right side there is a black coin, and on that coin there is a picture of ship. So from that coin we can understand that this type of ship was used by the people of that time. So these are the basic information. Then seals. Seals to tell us much about the past. Many seals with pictures of animals and inscriptions have been discovered from the Indus Valley ruins and other archaeological sites. Some seals from the Indus Valley sites have pictures of animals like rhinoceros and deer. This is a seal. Look at this seal carefully. A seal from the Indus Valley civilization showing a seated figure surrounded by animals. From this we know the kind of animals that existed during this period. So from this seal we can have an idea that these types of animals were available, or these types of animals existed at that time. Monuments. Archaeologists sometimes find the remains of ancient buildings that have been buried and forgotten. There are, however, many ancient buildings of historical importance and places of worship that have not been buried underground. Such buildings that still remain today are called monuments. So, archaeologists sometimes find the remains of ancient buildings that have been buried and forgotten due to earthquake and several other natural calamities. Because of a long period of time, the ancient buildings, monuments, some of them went under our earth, and sometimes the archaeologists discovered them by digging out or through the process of excavation. However, there are many ancient buildings of historical importance and places of worship that have not been buried underground because of some reason. They still remain on earth. They still stand on our mother earth proudly. Such buildings that still remain today, these are called monuments. And from these monuments also we can know different types of informations, like here is a monument, the Sachi Stupa. The Sachi Stupa, the Taj Mahal, the Charminar are all examples of monuments which are still standing on the ground. Monuments tell us a great deal about the past, the age in which they were built, and the people who built them. Efforts are made to preserve these historical monuments. So from these monuments we can know a great deal, a huge information about our past, in which age these monuments were built or established, set up, and who built them. As for example, from Taj Mahal we could know that Taj Mahal was built by the great builder Shah Jahan, and it took almost 22 years with the help of 22,000 laborers. Shah Jahan built this, etc. etc. So many other information. Archaeology, scientific tests, the study of inscriptions, manuscripts, fossils, coins, monuments have helped us find out a great deal about the history and free history of India and the world. So from these sources we can know about our ancient civilization, our ancient time, not only of our India, about the whole world. History and time. One of the most important things in study of history is learning how to recognize dates of significant events. The key terms used in history are decade, a period of 10 years. One decade means 10 years. Century, one century means 100 years. And millennium means a period of 1000 years. History is related to time, interlinked with time. So we should be acquainted with these types of terms like decade, century, millennium. Decade means 10 years, century means 100 years, and millennium means 1000 years. To be able to locate an event in time, dates are used. Traditionally, the birth of Christ was used as the point from which years were numbered in history. The years before the birth of Christ were labeled as BC, meaning before Christ. The full form of BC is before Christ. And years after the birth of Christ were labeled as AD. In Latin, it's Anno Domini. In English, its meaning is in the year of our Lord in Latin. Normally, we divide our years from the birth of Jesus Christ. We count in different way. Before the birth of Christ, the years we call before the birth of Christ, Jesus Christ as BC, before Christ, and after the birth of Christ as AD or Anno Domini. Anno Domini is actually Latin term. From that, abbreviated form is AD, in the year of our Lord. That means Jesus Christ. These days we use in terms of CE in place of AD. But nowadays, in our history book also we see that instead of AD it's written CE and BCE in place of BC. In place of BC it's written BCE and instead of AD it's written CE. CE stands for Common Era, while BCE stands for Before Common Era. Simply you can think Common Era means the time of Jesus Christ's birth. This system is thought to be a more neutral way of writing dates acceptable to people of all religions. An important thing to keep in mind with the dates is that in the period before the birth of Christ, years are counted backwards. That is, the year 200 BCE comes after the year 500 BCE on the timeline. Very interesting thing. BC, the years before the birth of Christ, they are counted backward. And the years after the birth of Christ, they are counted forward, in a forward movement. Understand? How? As for example, after the birth of Christ, at first comes the very first year. After first comes second, then third. First year comes first, then second, then third. But before the birth of Christ, first year is the last year. Before first year, second. Before second, third. Then third year comes first, then second year, then first year. Understand? I mean, it would be very easy if I could use blackboard. However, from that example, you can understand years that are counted backward. That is, the year 200 BC comes after year 500 BCE. 200 BC comes after 500 BC. 500 BC comes first after the 200 BC. In serially, you can think after AC, after AD. After AD, we count the years like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in this way. But in BC, they are counted 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, like that. Understand? So the year 10 comes at first, then 9, then 8, then 7, then 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. In this way, in a backward motion. Okay. Sarsa, C, is a Latin word that means around or approximately. This term is also often we find in our history book Sarsa. When we cannot specify any particular date or year, then we use that. Around or approximate. When we want to mean any time nearby that year, we use the Sarsa. When we can identify the specific time, then we can use that CE or BCE, Common Era or Before Common Era. However, Sarsa, it is used when the exact date of an event is not known but is thought to be around the stated date. Yes, here you can have an idea. Approximate year of birth of Jesus Christ in the very middle, first century. Think of first century. In AD, it moves forward. In BC, it moves backward towards the left and towards the right. In AD, after first century comes 100, then 200, then 300. But here in backward motion, after first, uh, before that 100, before that 200, before that 300. That means if we chronologically imagine or think, 300 BC comes first, then 200 BC, then 100 BC, then first century. But in case of AD, first 100 century comes first, then 200, then 300. But in BC, 300 comes first, then 200, then 100. So that's enough. That here we end our lecture, and this is our end of this chapter also, history and prehistory. Okay, and next day I shall give you homework also. In the meantime, if you have collected books from school, after reading this chapter carefully, you can try to solve the questions of book works. Okay, and we shall discuss in our next class. Thank you.